two great guests with us. You guys know Megan from our second session, and we have Walt, and so we'll introduce them really briefly, and we'll have them up for this quick panel discussion. Go ahead.
All right, Megan, Walt, yeah, if y'all want to come up, we'll introduce y'all. Also, we've got stools up. There are the chairs with the backs if you want those, but
Yeah.
We'll try those, and
We'll try
I'll
it.
let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is fun.
Cool.
Perfect. All right, so Megan Bowles, FA, I think we have.
No, just AI.
And-
But thank you.
It's a lot easier than most
Yeah. Megan's a senior consultant with Apostrophe Consulting, where she helps leaders advance strategic initiatives through improved workplace practices and employment engagement. She founded Lucy Hawk in 2022, a strategic partner focused on creating sustainable practices that support human well-being and team success. Megan currently serves as our AIA North Carolina President and has held leadership roles on various community boards. She's an experienced architect with a Bachelor of Architecture from NC State. She also consults with Factory Realty, bringing expertise in organizational design and strategic growth.
Welcome, Megan.
Welcome, Megan.
And we also have Walt joining us today. Walt is the creative director at Think Strategy. You guys might remember Cindy and Josh joining us for our financial management session from Think Strategy, where he leads design firm strategy, mentors emerging talent, and optimizes firms for growth. With over 30 years of experience in architecture, he's overseen projects across sectors such as senior living, education, healthcare, and government. He was a founding partner emeritus of TFF. I am worried that I will say the name.
TFF is fine.
Yeah. Architects and Planners. Walt was elevated to the AIA College of Fellows in 2012 and has had various leadership roles within the AIA. He was awarded the AIA North Carolina F. Carter Williams Gold Medal in 2023, very recently, and currently serves as the regional representative to the College of Fellows. So we really appreciate you being here. Thank you, Walt. Welcome. So we're gonna jump in. Oh, those are the longer bios of y'all. So this is the icebreaker question. What was the very first job you ever had?
First, like official W-2, I worked at Chick-fil-A.
Nice.
And I think I worked there about 4 years, and I do think it was a great job, but it was also really an opportunity to learn to lead. By the time I was going into college, like I was leading a little team of like 5 people, and we were making sure the food was getting made. So it was a good experience for sure.
And mine was a job, and it was a real job. And when I tell you about it, because it wasn't necessarily a paying job, that came a little bit later. This goes way back. I actually grew up on a dairy farm, so I had the full farm experience 24/7, 365 days a year, not necessarily being paid, but just making sure that all of my needs were being met, and what it seemed like they were, because I never felt like I was need of anything. But there's one thing that I've learned there that has carried throughout my career, and it's something I remember my grandfather, I can hear him saying this in my ear right now: don't be afraid of hard work. And when you grow up like that, you're doing hard manual labor, you're doing mental labor constantly, and you just cannot be afraid of hard work. And I've carried that throughout my professional career. Now, practicing architecture was a lot cleaner than cleaning up after dairy cows, but most of the time anyway. But it was hard work, and it was, the fact that, don't be afraid to work hard, and persistence, work hard until the job is done. And that's something I found to be invaluable in the practice of architecture. I'm sure y'all probably have as well.
All right. Appreciate the introductions. Give us a brief overview of your career path, what led you to pursue positions of leadership within or outside of your firms? Megan, start with you.
Okay. Overview of my career. So I feel like I kind of fell into architecture in a lot of ways. When I was in 8th grade, my school counselor was like, "What do you want to like? Let's map out your 4-year plan for high school," which is kind of ridiculous to ask a 13-year-old to do that. But helped me find like this intersection of like the creative and the logic. I took some drafting classes, which I'm sure many of you did. And then it was like, time for college. Well, I guess I'll apply to architecture school. And not being a very wise 17-year-old, applied to one school. Thankfully got in. I went to NC State. And there really enjoyed the profession. When I graduated, I took about the same approach for looking for jobs and was like, I mean, I guess I need one. Applied to a few. I applied to Boney Architects, which had just recently merged with LS3P. Walk into my interview very much thinking I'm at Boney Architects, and go through about half the interview with that assumption in my head, get corrected midway through, so that's fun to get corrected in your interview. Somehow still got a job, and spent, I think it was about 17 years there, just navigating through the intern to project manager to principal. And I would say in terms of leadership steps, it's a mix of intentional and opportunity just presenting itself. One of the truly pivotal moments for myself was actually participating in Leadership Forum First Class. 2014? I don't know. 15. So participating in the first class, and a lot of just really thinking about what is it that I enjoy doing and how do I position my career to shape towards that. And once I started to lean into that, I shifted, even deeper into project management, but also firm management, moved into our operations and finance manager role a few years after that. And for me, the most important part of that was positioning myself in the space where I could do what I really enjoyed doing as well as what I was good at doing, and it benefited the firm. So that was a truly pivotal moment, and since then it's just continuing to look at opportunities to build on that and create the career that's good for me and good for others, hopefully most days.
So I can kind of give you a different perspective on this because my coming to architecture was very non-traditional. This is actually my second career. My first degree was in business and in marketing. I worked for 9 years in a business-related or architecture-related business. However, I always had this inner desire to want to get into architecture, and I never really understood why. I knew why, because I went to a very small high school. I had no exposure, even art classes or anything like that, but it was just something that I felt like I needed to do. So, however, in undergraduate school, I felt like I wasn't at a NAB accredited school. We didn't offer any kind of design classes like that. I did business because I thought it would be very versatile in what I might do. I was still feeling very undecided in what I might do. But after 9 years, I went ahead and pursued what I thought was my dream, to follow my passion. And this is the part I'm telling you, I would not recommend this to anyone because it was married with 2 children, and and commuting to NC State. I live close to Greensboro, and commuting back and forth to NC State for the time that I was there. So that was how I was introduced in the career path that I had, how did I pursue leadership? I didn't really pursue leadership positions. I'll have to be honest. It seems like they always found me, what they're saying, and this actually began when I was in high school, being tapped on the shoulder, and can you do this, can you do that, can you lead this, can you lead that? So I think it was a fault of mine that I could never say no, and I'm sure that a lot of you have that same issue. But I will say that one thing that, and as Megan was sharing, this just kind of came to mind while I was at NC State. I had the opportunity to serve through their community design group with working with real clients and communities in facilitating, talking about what their issues and their concerns were, and coming up with design solutions. And I think that the first firm that I went to work with, which was, I was kind of my wife and my children, we had a home, they were in schools. I couldn't relocate to go anywhere else, so I had to go work with a firm that was close by, that was there. But I'd say they always tapped me to help lead and facilitate internal and external discussions that they had. So that was part of it. But then with AIA, and I'll get into talking about this a little bit more with one of the other questions, I believe. But with AIA, there were some people that were a tremendous influence on me that were architects. Paul Booney was one of them, Steve Schuster was another, Phil Freelon was another, that were a tremendous influence on drawing me into working in leadership positions within the profession. Did I answer that completely? Probably too much.
Great. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so what are some of the key skills and qualities you have found are essential for effective management? So assuming in some of those leadership positions, you're managing other people and working with other people, do you have any advice on those? Maybe Walt will start with you this time.
Sure, and I'll try to keep this a little more brief. Communication. And that's something that I learned in business school and in marketing. It is all about having open communications, whether it's with your clients, whether it's with your colleagues, that having an open line of communication and clearly stating what your goals are, your objectives, communicating, I'm going to go left, so you go right. Whether it's in working with a project team and how you're getting a project done, or whether you're working within the profession with AIA and you're trying to direct getting something like the Center for Architecture and Design off the ground. It's just making sure that you are communicating effectively to whoever your audience is.
Yeah, I thought this was a good question. And for me, I think it's finding a balance and also practicing agility. And the reason for that is so many of the things that we're asked to do, whether that's activities or leading relationships, kind of fall on a spectrum. And because we are often having to navigate that, being able to find the balance between dreaming the next big idea and doing it and executing and making sure it's done. Now, you don't have to fall square in the middle, but being able to find somewhere in the middle helps you navigate that and bring a team along with you. Balancing, candor with empathy. I think those are really important things. Understanding the aspects of the business, super important, and what does it take to keep the doors open tomorrow, and then balancing that with, inspiration to really bring people along. So I think that's very important. And again, we're all unique, and so we naturally fall somewhere on that spectrum. But really effective leaders and managers can navigate between that. And it is a skill, and I think it can be learned and it can be honed over time. And takes practice, and I think it's always beneficial when you have people on your side that are helping you navigate through that.
All right, so similar, I know you all talked about communication a little bit here, so I'm sure that might play into some of this, but based on your experiences and observations, what are some of the larger challenges facing firm leadership in today's work environment? And Megan, we'll start with you. Sorry.
I mean, kind of touched on it a little. I think the adaptability is huge. I think understanding our context, internal and external, is really important. I mean, we've probably all heard it. Talent is a big challenge. Just the ability to attract and retain people, especially when there's so many other options in the world. I also would say similar to that is the business model itself in terms of selling hours for dollars, and some of that competition that we're seeing is, you know, technology companies, or even especially on the residential side, like you're seeing non-architects come into the space and deliver a product in a different way. And so I think those are, I like to say they're unique, but I'm sure every generation deals with their version of it, but I think that's what we're dealing with right now. So those are challenges. Good. I don't have to try to answer them. Just identify them.
I'm going to respond to this through a different lens, and it may be a little unexpected since I'm the old guy in the room. Since I have stopped practicing architecture, I've become more engaged in other ways in the profession. One of them has been with NCARB, and I'm serving on their Futures Collaborative Committee, which is really exciting because we're looking way out to the future. I think I was put on that because I am the old guy. I can bring the older person perspective to the conversation of here's where we've been and here's where it's going. But we're looking at 30, 40, 50 years in advance. And being someone that when I came into it, yeah, we were on the drafting boards. And then navigating and working through in starting a firm and growing the firm with converting to CAD and BIM, and what is coming with AI is mind-blowing. I think that's going to, and I know you hear a lot of talk about that, but with the advances in technology that are coming that we may not have even heard about yet, it is going to be a tremendous challenge, I think, for firms to really get their hands around it. And the challenge that we're seeing is that as AI comes along, and I don't necessarily, need to feel threatened that it's going to replace the architect. Here's what's going to save the architect, and here's the challenge: is that regardless how you use AI as a tool, as you use for creative ideas or whatever, the architect has still got to maintain responsible control. So that means you got to control what's going in, what data is going in, and then you've also got to control the quality assurance of what's coming out, what's being produced. And then, of course, it was interesting at the Aspire experience in Asheville a few weeks ago. I think that's where it was. No, it was actually it was at Aspire. I began hearing some pushback from architects that were attending a session on AI saying, no, we're not giving up our creative avenue within practice. And I think that's what it's gonna take, especially when you have clients that are feeling like, well, AI is going to be able to accelerate things, so why do we have to pay you such a high fee? Well, we're still going to be responsible. We still have to know how to use the tool. We still have to make sure that there's a certain amount of quality of valid data going into what's being produced, and then there's that black box of what's created or how it comes out. But then we've got to review and make sure that I feel good about putting my stamp, putting my seal. I know I'm stamping because when I first started, you asked for a stamp. I know it's done on the computer now, but anyway, that I feel good about putting my stamp of approval, because you're still taking responsibility, and that how firms are going to be able to grasp that and control that in the future is going to be a real challenge.
I think it's a challenge, but I think it's also an opportunity to address some of these other challenges that we've been facing. And I think the way that we approach that is gonna really indicate, like, do we move forward as a profession, or do we continue to grind as a profession? I think the more we try to integrate that into practice, integrate adjacent professions and people in technology into the way that we work, I think that we'll see more progress, faster progress towards improvement as a profession, and I think and I hope improvement of the work that we do.
Which I'll share this very quickly with you. Another thing that we've just started looking at, and I know you've all heard this in the past, and that is our clients and the public don't really understand the value of what we do as architects and the value of architecture to society. And what we've begun looking at or thinking about, well, okay, we've had marginal success in communicating that the way we've always done it and reflecting on history and current day. What if we project to the future and what the practice is going to look like, and how does it bring value to the public's perception of value of architects and architecture? We've just begun looking at this and how we can promote the profession. And we've just begun looking at this. And the good thing about it is we've got a head start above everybody else, because you start looking at, what is the profession going to look like in 30 years, 40 years, 50 years? It's going to be all about sustainability and resilience and flexibility and multi-use of space. I mean, the list goes on. And of course, technology advances. What I can't comprehend is the 3D printing of, I can't quite grasp that yet, but they say it's out there and it's coming. But self-healing building materials, it's amazing. But the profession already has a jump on all of that, and so if we as a profession can look at and advance the value and the benefit of working with architects, with all of the, from the way it's going to be and the challenges in the future. That's a message that we may be able to deliver more effectively.
Those are good answers. So how have your firms or the firms that you've worked at addressed the need for mentorship, and what's worked for y'all, what hasn't, or what's worked for those companies and what hasn't? Any experiences on that you'd like to share?
So it kind of dovetails, Megan, to what you were talking about, the need for, the technical expertise and how are we continuing to build that, especially given the rapid change in technology. And we're certain leaders, we may not have that experience that folks coming now out of school have, and I don't know how to manage the AI component, and so how am I supposed to mentor someone that knows technologically even far more than I do now at this point, or can program or something?
Yeah, and that's a good way to frame the question. I've seen it. I think there's a lot of weight with mentorship and just history behind it. And I think we all aspire for it and want it, but we've also probably experienced it not great, more than great. And this actually came up in a AI leadership conversation of, like, we might need to redefine what we're talking about when we say this. And I like to think about coaching and our role as leaders in helping people navigate the firm environment, navigate the profession, navigate their life. In some ways, we don't want to be life coaches. But just like the person who's really good at technology, and I'm not going to be coaching them on how to script code, but I can help them navigate, okay, you want to do that. You see the value for our profession. Here's how we navigate that through our firm. So we need to look at the business case. We need to look at how do we apply this in projects. And so I, as a leader, I can bring that lens and help them figure it out versus me saying as a mentor, here are the 8 steps you need to take to become a leader. It's helping them take their idea and fit it into the system or even adapt the system to adjust to that. Because I think you're absolutely right. And even what Walt's talking about, like the future of architecture is going to look so different. Almost having a really prescriptive model is going to be impossible to follow, or we won't see change. The other thing that just from an experience standpoint is the personal relationship. So I felt most mentored and invested in through just very intentional one-on-one relationships from a colleague, and they might have been a step ahead in their career, but they would help me with details. They would help me have a hard conversation with a client. They would help me talk about, do I go to grad school or not? And I think sometimes we lose some of that in the day-to-day, especially when we're juggling between so many tasks. I do think that's something that seems to have changed dramatically since we were sitting shoulder to shoulder and drafting, sitting beside each other with drafting boards. Like, that's changed a lot. And I think we've tried to overcompensate it by creating programs, but the reality is we learn and develop by doing work together. So I would look at it that way of how do we be intentional in the work that we're doing every day, and just thinking about that. So.
As far as my mentoring experience and how it was addressed, once again, I'm going to go way back in time. I don't think there really was a mentoring of any sort. I remember when I first came out and had my position, the first architectural firm is go in, okay, here's your board, here's the project, and you had to provide your own tools at that time, drafting tools. Get settled, and you got a deadline tomorrow, and go have at it. And it was there wasn't a whole lot of coaching or leadership or training. Now that might have been more the fault of the firm that I was with at the time, but I can say that looking back on it, I can see that these project architects and firm principals are just so overwhelmed with so many other things and commitments and things that have to be done that it's easy to overlook that. But I learned very quickly, and I think this is something I think all aspiring architects and future leaders need to maintain. I think y'all are probably all beyond this, because looking over your resumes, y'all are much more seasoned in the profession than what I was expecting when we first started talking about this. But you have to, it's not going to be spoon-fed, and you have to listen and watch and gather as much information and knowledge about how to detail, how to practice, where to find resources, how to look it up, and not necessarily depending so much on someone else all the time. Now, that's not to say that mentoring isn't important, because that's just how it was, the perspective that I had as I was first getting into the profession. That changed, and maybe I was influenced by that experience as I started my own practice and had a number of aspiring architects that came through that I mentored personally, and made sure that there was a significant amount of engagement with them at every stage, and anything, particularly anything new or any kind of new assignment, make sure that they understood what the challenge was and what needed to be done. To the point that the last individual that I mentored personally, it was someone right out of school, had no experience whatsoever working in an architectural office. Very good with computers, but that can be a dangerous thing too. But having this person just shadow me for a year in everything that I did in all of the meetings, and the engagement with clients and with consultants and contracting, because I just wanted to make sure that they had a full range of experience. But I also know that that's not the experience that perhaps that's the ideal, but it's not the experience that every firm is going to be able to afford.
Oh, wrong way. Here we go.
All right, if you could go back in time and give yourself some business or leadership advice to a younger version of yourself, what would you tell them? Walt, we'll start with you.
I'm gonna jump forward to where I was began my own practice. Find a good accountant. Bring them on. With a business background, I was feeling like, well, okay, we can handle the bookkeeping and this sort of thing. But I also found out that it takes a lot more time than you might expect to handle all of the invoicing and the cash flow and the payroll, and it goes on and on. And then when it comes tax time, oh my gosh. But realize and feeling like, okay, we can handle that internally. We don't have to have that overhead. We don't have to bring in a consultant or have someone to do that for us. And finding out that my time, or one of my partner's times, was much better spent staying focused on something that is going to be revenue generating, producing. And this one aspect, which is relatively small in the grand scheme of things, with someone that can handle all of the accounting, to bring them on just as a consultant to begin with. I would have done that a year in advance, and it would have made a huge difference. There are other things I could share, but I want to let Megan share.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, and I think you could broaden that to like anything that is I'll say secondary, but like core to running a business is finding good partners in that. And that'll tie into my advice to myself is in finding and investing in good partnerships, and recognizing that those can really enhance my skills as a leader, especially when those are complementary in the skill sets that we have. I was talking about the spectrum of leadership, and sometimes I'm strong on one side and not great on the other, and so having that partner that I can rely on. Also, it's a lot of fun when you've got that person that you can trust. And then the other nuanced aspect of that is like those relationships may come and go, and they may be for a season or a period, and that's that's good and that's okay. So just like looking for those, they may happen within your firm, they may happen with AIA, they may happen in the community. It may not be an architect at a given point in time, but just finding people who help you be like the better version of yourself and advance to that next level is something that I've learned and I've enjoyed, and would be great at 20 to have started on that.
Let me share one other thing that popped in my mind is with what Megan was sharing. Earlier on, I would have learned how to delegate because I think we all have a tendency to feel like I can do it better, I can do it quicker than if I, have somebody else doing this, and you get, especially if it's somebody that you're mentoring or is maybe doesn't quite have the knowledge that you do. And that was a particular fault of mine, and there's only so many hours of the day. And so I think, and it's a whole nother discussion we can get at, how do you delegate efficiently or effectively? A whole nother discussion that we could have, but I think for me, earlier on, if I had learned how to better delegate certain responsibilities to others that I was working with, would have gone a long way for my own well-being as well as the well-being of a project or whatever we were doing.
It's kind of interesting. I feel like all of y'all's answers are kind of saying, like, you don't have to do everything, because I feel like we're trained to be generalists and know how to do everything ourselves and take on all that responsibility ourselves. But you're saying, don't do the accounting yourself. Help work with other people to balance your strengths.
Yeah.
Delegate to your team. So it's, the theme there for me is like, don't try to do everything yourself.
Good thing.
At least that's what I'm hearing when I hear those answers.
Sometimes you'd be surprised if you delegate and make sure that they understand they're responsible for this. They've got to get it done. When I have forced myself to do it, allowed myself to do it, I've been surprised sometimes, not all the time, but surprised with what the other person, the person who was delegated to, what they were able to do. It's like, oh, okay, now I see.
Megan, for those of us who are sort of transitioning to that, position of leadership or taking over, and you've got sort of your senior leadership transitioning into their next chapter, do you have any advice for how to approach that so that it doesn't feel like you're trying to take activity or take responsibility and push someone out of a certain role that they've been in, or have you had any experience with that and sort of the delicacy of that conversation within your firms?
Do you want to take it?
I'll let you go first.
You might have more experience to it. I'm gonna approach it from a consulting standpoint. So you do it from
There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead.
Having a third party in the conversation can be really helpful, and I'm not advertising necessarily, but I think that these are hard things to say to another person, but helping them find their next is really important, and whether that's next in the firm or that's next outside of the firm, because when someone has the thing that they're looking forward to, they're much more likely to delegate or share the current thing that they have going on right now. The reason I'm going to go to consulting is I have a client right now that's doing this really, really well, and to the point that I'm like, I've never seen this done this well. 2 partners going to 2 new partners, and they have pretty much delegated all management to them, to the new partners, and said we're here to advise, and doing a pretty good job of it. But I think it's because they know what's next for them, and they're really looking forward to it. And so I would say, maybe it's even just asking them, what are you excited about? What are you looking forward to in the next 5 to 8 years? And starting the conversation that way truly is friends and peers, because you probably are kind of peers at this point. It may not always feel like that because of title or whatever, but you're getting close to it. I think having those conversations, and then just being very clear about, in the next year, I would like to take on X. What can we do to move towards that? And I would advise that at any point in your career, whether you're trying to get your AXP hours or you're trying to move into being the CEO. I think that's a good let's put milestones out there and walk forward together.
Yeah, you've touched on what I wanted to share with you, and which I think is really important, and that is to whatever their position is with your staff, with your employees, to have a good understanding of where they're coming from. What are their interests? What are their aspirations? What are their goals? Not only professionally, but it may carry over into their personal life as well. So, it's making that connection of, what's really motivating, what's inspiring, they're bringing about the drive in that individual. And then through the mentoring, through the work that you do with them, to bring that out, put them into positions, give them responsibilities that help them realize, that, this really is a strength, this really is something I want to do, or recognize what the weaknesses are that we need to work on more. So I think it's really trying to help meet that individual halfway and understanding what their needs are, what their goals are within the profession, and then working out a plan to help them get there.
I think there's also probably something we need to think about as a profession and firm management is as people are going to work longer because our life expectancy extends, retirement funds may not be what they used to be, we're going to see people working into their 70s more than ever before, and that either means you have someone sitting in a leadership position for 40 years, 30 to 40 years, or we need to start thinking about a third wave of what career looks like. So you're moving into leadership, you're leading, and then what is this third thing that comes from that? And so what I would say to you as you are moving into leadership and starting to run and manage firms is start thinking about, like, when I'm ready for my third wave, what is it going to look like? And no, I don't think we can have 30% of our staff being full-time mentors. That doesn't work in a business model very well. But starting to think about how do you potentially reintegrate into the practice in a new and different way.
This is going to come about in your lifetime, believe it or not.
100%.
I mean, it really is. I want to talk about the Futures Collaborative just for a minute. We do a lot of digging, a lot of reading, a lot of future stuff. Do you know what the life expectancy is supposed to be? I think it's in 30 years. 114. I was like, what? And it's mostly brought about by the advances within the biomedical field. Now, we can get into a discussion, well, okay, how good is that going to be? Because having a mother and father that lived into their 90s and what the quality of life was in the last few years. Do I want to live to 114? And what the quality of life is going to be then. But along with that, it's not just my biomedical, but just other things. Well, it's related biomedical that's going to be brought. A lot of it's being advanced within AI, within biomedical. But the things that are to regenerate organs and regenerate self-healing organs and combating diseases or whatever, it really is mind-boggling. And so, hey, I'm going on 71, so I feel like my life expectancy is late 70s, so I've only got a few years left. But if I'm going to have another 30 years, I need to start thinking about, okay, what's the next?
Yes.
So, and y'all are going to be confronted with that, believe it or not.
Oh, okay, so we wanted to open it up to y'all if you guys had specific questions. As we start to kind of wrap up the panel discussion, these were some of the ones from one of our first panels that we thought we could use. But if you guys have specific questions right now, since you guys want to.
So both of you are AIA North Carolina leaders, and as you've been talking about our profession and where it's moving, architects used to always be referred to as the prime consultant because they were managing all the other consultants. I feel like in some ways, as things have gotten more specialized, there's sustainability experts, building maintenance experts. How do we communicate to the public that we're more than just generalists? I think there's kind of this pushback. And general contractors don't seem to have any problem with this. But clients are always looking at us as architects and being like, what do we pay for? Why are we paying you so much? I don't know if that's really a question, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a question that we're grappling with within AIA, and I think I would look at it in two ways. Is one, how do we communicate our value? And then the second, which I think might actually be more important, is how do we actually make ourselves valuable? And sometimes I don't think we focus enough attention on that. And, you know, recognizing that these building envelope consultants, sustainability consultants often are architects. And I think we need to recognize that and say that there is value in going into that specialization. There is value as staying, you know, the prime coordinator and facilitator. But when I get into those conversations, I'm like, what is the value that we're going to add in 30 years? And it probably is different than the value we were adding 30 years ago. I'm confident that it is. And so I think we need to really reflect on that and allow ourselves to let go of the things that aren't, like, that we're holding as precious, but maybe they're not. And then really lean into the things that we are uniquely positioned to lead in. I think about facilitating, bringing together diverse perspectives, thinking about really complex situations. I think we're good at that. I'm not going to say we're the only people good at that either. So, like, I think we need to just recognize that, and then a little bit of just like reevaluation of like, what does the world need now? So.
This has been a challenge for, I think, at least as long as I've been in architecture. I remember when I first applied and being someone that had applied to architectural school, and my background was unconventional. It was something unrelated to design. It was in business. It was in marketing. And one of the selection committee, it's like, we need to have somebody that has that perspective of marketing, and it's a very positive term. Some people think about marketing. It's not a good term. It's all about communicating effectively. But anyway, and so, you know, my career path began there, and then I was amazed as I, you know, advanced further during architectural school, and even in my first job in an architectural firm, and with AIA leadership, and how reluctant architects were to talk about what we do and advance the value of what we do. And that actually kind of became the mantle that I've carried for 35 years within the profession of, and the thing about it is that it is a constant thing. It's not something that's ever going to be accomplished. And as Megan was saying, the value of what we have to offer is going to evolve, and it's going to change. It's just making sure that we have a good understanding what that value is and find ways to communicate that effectively. Now, how do we communicate that effectively? It's, you know, it's such a broad audience that it makes it somewhat difficult. I like to say that it begins in making sure your clients see that you are serving them well, and that you are coming up with good design solutions and good projects, buildings, environments that address all of what their needs are, and then they're going to talk about it, you know, with some of their colleagues. So it's got to begin with you and how effective you are in doing a good job as an architect.
Maybe hiring one of those external partners to do some marketing for us.
Yeah.
Maybe time for one more question from the audience. Anybody? Class?
Surely we have an answer to all of the questions.
We definitely have.
Probably for Walt. Could you describe what that shadowing looks like, or what you might suggest it looks like?
I'll share with you. Now, I was the owner of the firm, and so I had a lot more liberty in how that individual that I was shadowing me, how they were spending their time for the first several years, I would say a lot of it was pretty much non-billable, but we knew that it was going to pay dividends in the future and making sure that they were being mentored well and that they were learning well. But it was actually making sure that if there was something, I would say they were following me around all the time, but if there was something significant that I was doing that would be a learning experience, to make sure that person was with me and in the room and they were listening and telling them, you've got to learn and listen and learn. It's not going to be coming to you. I'm not going to spoon feed it to you. A lot of it is just by observing and listening and just making sure that they were aware of that as well. And I can remember a number of times as this person was sitting in the room, they would say, "Don't forget about your learning moments." There were many times something would come up, a challenge or an issue or whatever, and that had to be solved, and I would make sure to go out into the studio and say, "Come in here. I want you to be engaged and listen to what this challenge is, what this problem is, and how we're going to solve it, because you got a real learning moment here." Or they might have been there and said, "Okay, whether you recognize it or not, you just had a learning moment. I will make sure that you know that there was something really important that you should have learned right then and there."
Thank you. I wanted to hear a little bit more about that, because I think those of us stepping into management and then bringing others into management, there's this point where, okay, now you're project manager. Well, I've never been, and project manager has always been doing all of that, and I haven't seen what it looks like, so you need to bring people along with you so that those transitions happen. And we talked about it, come from project manager up beyond that, what that transition looks like. If you've never had any of that partnership or principal experience, you can't just step into it the next day.
Yeah.
How do you balance, as architects, I feel like we're typically perfectionists, or we strive for continuing to solve problems and to provide the best design possible. How do you balance that desire with profitability and schedules and not losing yourself to 12 a.m. work sessions?
Yeah. You go ahead.
12 a.m. work sessions are just going to happen. But I think it begins with making sure that you set up the project, understanding financially how does everything what's the effect of the number of hours spent and engaged, on the project, so that, and making sure that your staff is aware of that as well. It's like, okay, now you want to be realistic about it. Don't give your schedule these unrealistic, stupid, time commitments that you got to have this done in 2 hours when it's really an 8-hour, task, and you know it. But just making sure that the project is set up so that there is an understanding of the impact of the amount of time that is spent. Now that's part of where the problem is, that I don't know that I ever let go of it, where you would know that it was going to take more time to get it to a better place, and it was going to be more time than you had budgeted for it. But I'm going to work all night, or I'm going to work till midnight on this, and so it's it's my gratuitous effort toward the success of the project. That takes more self-control and just being able to allow you to get it to a point that you can feel good about it and let it go. Because we all know we can continue working on getting it better and better, forever. I mean, even during the construction, you're wanting to make, changes to make it even better. So it's just making yourself be disciplined to get it to a certain point where you just have to let it lie.
It's
Let
got to
it
get
be.
built at some point.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Probably didn't give you an answer though, did it?
I think also as a company, as a firm, as a team, starting to develop and articulate this is our design process. I don't think a lot of firms have that clearly articulated. And again, going back to what is the value that we really create, and it is design. And so putting more time and effort into let's get this designed and figured out before we start laying out sheets. Like, I know a lot of times it's easy to be like, oh, intern, go lay out sheets because I don't have time for you yet. And that task is going to take up whatever time is free versus saying, we're going to bring our team of 10 people together. We're going to work on this for 3 days, working through all the design iterations. And it's going to cost a lot of money to have that 3-day, 10-person meeting, but it's going to be worth it in the end. So I think, thinking through that and doing that a little bit differently can help too. But plan for it financially.
All right. So if you guys have extra questions, I think you can throw them in the Miro board. We'll maybe forward some over to you if you feel so inclined to answer
Just give us a link.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Can I add one last thing? I want to congratulate all of you for taking out your time, because speaking of having to spend more time on a project or whatever, your commitments at the office haven't stopped, and I'm sure your office haven't blocked this out that, okay, you're going to be doing, half a day, however, 9 times or however many times to complete this process. But this is so valuable for your career development, and I applaud all of you and AIA Triangle for doing this.
Appreciate that.
It's an excellent program.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to take a couple-minute break, and then we're going to have the graduation. So, thank you guys. We have Joshua Thomasson with you today. He's our AIA Triangle President. It's been really good to have representation from the College of Fellows throughout the session and support with AIA North Carolina, but we couldn't have done it without AIA Triangle. So you'll say a couple words about that, but I'll introduce Joshua. He's an architect at KC Studio Architecture in Raleigh with a portfolio of diverse public and private projects across North Carolina. His designs emphasize site development and building materiality, drawing on global travel experiences that inform his approach to creating civic spaces. Currently serving as the president of the AIA Triangle Board of Directors, he also chairs the Triangle of Architecture competition, which is like my favorite event that the AIA Triangle does, raising funds for local animals in need. Virginia Tech graduate and passionate advocate for community outreach, Joshua is committed to educating others about the important roles architects can play in our society. So will you please welcome Joshua? You have the floor.
So thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I wish we could have got you a more exciting commencement speaker, but this is what you got. So, as Shannon mentioned, I'm Joshua Thomasson, president of AIA Triangle. I am a past graduate of AIA Triangle's Leadership Forum. And I just want to say that, I've been so impressed how this program's grown over the years. The leadership of Eileen, Shauna, Matt, having that influence to really grow this, and challenging these classes to create some really great community projects that have gone out in the architectural community, but beyond that. And that was really the goal, I think, all along with this program, is to get really established leaders here, grow them into something that they could continue in their firms. So really excited to see what they put on this year. My plug would be, if you want to hear more about those programs, please join us for our membership meeting November 12th. It's at Peck and Plume, downtown Cary. And you'll hear a little bit more about that as well. But really excited about this program. I think one of the biggest things that we can do is prepare our architects for things that we need to know about, but we're never actually told about. So I think as we've developed our course and our strategic plan this year, where we're headed, we want more of these opportunities to really just prepare our architects for the future. So if you're working, into your 70s, or I think it was 114, or you're prepared for that. So we've seen it with our emerging technology event, this program, and we've got some exciting other ones coming up too. So thank you again for that. When I saw you asked me to do the grant for the AIA College of Fellows grant application, I thought this was just like a really great program. And I will say that support from the AIA College of Fellows is huge. We love money. Money is great. It gets a lot accomplished. But the money is nothing if we don't have a great group of people that take this on and they actually put the work in. So thank you, Shannon and Sam, for really pushing this program through. I've heard just wonderful things, and we're excited to see where this can also go in the future. My one challenge to everyone in this room, especially the graduating class, is if this is something that you really got something out of, let's talk about continuing this program as well and what it could become. But also if there's something out there that you've always wanted to learn about and you've been passionate about, let's talk about that too, and let's see how AIA Triangle can support that. So again, thank you all for having me, and congrats to the first AIA Triangle Leadership Forum mini MBA class.
Awesome. So the real reason you came was for the mini
So we're gonna call you all up, and at the end we'll do a picture with the group. Shannon and I'll say a few words, and then we'll shut up, and you won't have to hear from us again for the rest of the year.
But first, place your left hand on the Architect's Handbook of Professional Practice. I've been trying to figure out how to sneak that one in. Okay, so Matthew Szymanski. Sir.
All right, Rhonda Zach.
Oh, this one here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
All right, Kelly Waldrop. We're really good at it.
I know. They make it look easy. Rod Kramer.
Yeah. Congrats, Rob. Thank you.
All right, Jennifer Hines.
There you go. Jackie Lang.
Who we got next? Linda Lapis.
Michael Solaro.
We got to slide over because it. Caitlin Gardner.
Claire Zambrano.
I know, right?
Claire. That's Claire.
Paul Stewart.
Shauna Maybe.
All right, Eileen McDonough. Yeah. Okay.
And last but not least, Michael Frew.
We do have two honorary diplomas to hand out, which are actually over here. One for Ashton Stewart. I don't know if Amelia's made it yet, but Amelia Murphy. Yes. Amelia and Ashton helped us out a lot throughout the year, really just supporting Sam and I and helping brainstorm all the sessions, so I really appreciate your help also throughout the year. Okay, so I think with that, we're just gonna give a little closing speech and then we'll start the brunch.
Yeah.
Yeah?
All right, let's give one more big round of applause for the class of 2024. We really appreciate the class commitment to making the program a success this year. I know it's been a lot.
Developing a mini MBA program has been a whirlwind of late night spreadsheets, caffeine-fueled brainstorming sessions, and more than a few, I don't know how we're gonna do this or pull this off, moments, especially for two architects who do not have MBAs. But looking at everybody here today, we can confidently say it was worth it.
And to the class of 2024, you survived the gauntlet of business basics, from profit ratios to staff advancement strategies, to conquering the thriller of a read that is the Architect's Handbook of Professional Practice, all while maintaining your sanity and hopefully your jobs.
Or new jobs for some folks.
Or new jobs, yes.
Business is a crucial part of what we do, whether we like it or not. From figuring out how to keep the lights on to inspiring our teams to do their best work, a solid business foundation is essential to doing great work. We all know this. And when we as architects and designers do great work, our communities, families, and even our friends benefit.
So before we dive into brunch and, let's be honest, mimosas, we want to once again thank everyone who made the program possible. AIA North Carolina, AIA Triangle, and the AIA Triangle Leadership Forum, the AIA College of Fellows who offered a very generous component grant for this program this year. And of course, we wanted to support our incredibly supportive local community. We also want to thank our program facilitators again, and the Leadership Forum colleagues who are here today to join us. Ashton Stewart and Amelia Murphy, you've been a big part of this as well, so thank you again for all your help and support. And then we also want to support our individual firms. Shannon's with Due to Pain, I'm with Integrated Design, who have generously afforded us both time and resources to develop the program. That's been always a fun one on timesheets.
And with that, cheers to y'all. I wish I had a mimosa right now. Cheers to y'all. Thanks again for a successful year, and please enjoy the bench.
Yeah.
And one more, we wanted to also, the class, the inaugural class, is to thank you guys, Shannon Robinson and Jen Berner. Can you, everybody give a round of applause, because without their envisioning and information for programs,
And then we just need a big group photo
Oh, yeah.
with the class as well. So if you could,
here.
what's that?
Before the
It's going to be right up here, yeah, before you dive into the mimosas. So if you just bring your little mini MBA diplomas, and then
yes.
just come up here in the front.
All right, everybody jump in the air. 3, 2, 1.